Monday, December 5th. If you meeting is called to order, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Mayor Burchell?
Here.
District 1 Morstead?
Here.
District 2 Yakub?
Here.
District 3 Bernard?
Here.
District 4 Wyland?
Here.
District 5 Hoggett?
Here.
District 6 Vanslo?
Here. This time, we'd ask any citizen present that would like to speak to the council on any item that is not on the agenda to come forward at this time. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council? If not, we'll move on. Consent agenda items.
To approve the public hearing and regular meeting minutes of November 21st, 2011. To approve claims for payment in the amount of $308,372.55. A detailed description is available in the clerk's office on request and is posted on the city's website. To approve the issuance of 4 regular operators licenses for the period December 6, 2011 to June 30th, 2013. Information is available on request in the clerk's office. To approve the denial of an operator's license to Tara Lynn Schroeder as recommended by Police Chief Jensen based on the number of alcohol-related violations during the past 2 years. To approve the 2012 budget for the sewer utility as presented. To approve the 2012 budget for the parking utility as presented. To approve the 2012 budget for St. Croix EMS as presented. To approve the police department purchase of a 2013 Ford SUV vehicle from River Valley Ford in the amount of $26,248.
Can we pull that, please?
To approve the continuation of in-house lawn mowing operations for 2012. To approve the election inspector appointments as presented by the Republican and Democratic parties and the undesignated appointments for the term of January 1st, 2012 through December 31st, 2013, with the additional consideration that they may also serve as special registration deputies or special voting deputies as needed for election-related duties at the Christian Community Home. To place on file the quarterly reports of the Parks and Public Works Director and the Wastewater Director. That is all.
Did you say the Eagle Scout one?
Pardon?
Did you include the Eagle Scout project?
No, that was pulled.
It was.
Yep,
From the consent agenda.
from the consent agenda.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there-
Second?
Roll call, please.
Wyland?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Morset?
Yes.
Yakub?
Yes.
Hoggett?
Yes.
Vanslo?
Yes.
If it please the council, we'll go to the Public Works and we'll have Mr. Yerry's Boy Scout project make a presentation first, if that's okay with everyone. Yes, sir.
I'm Isaac Gary. I live on 227 Pine Street. I'm going to be doing a Eagle project, hopefully at the public library main entrance. They have the retaining wall sort of halfway up, and I would like to finish it. The garden club has asked me to do this, as they've wanted it done for a while. Overall, the cost of the project, just the wall itself, will be around $4,000 to mid $4,000, almost $5,000. That's pretty much all of it that you need to know. If there are any questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Looks like a great project.
I move to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
The, I believe there's also, do you want to talk about donations to the project?
Would you like me to handle that?
Sure.
Thank you. I'm Scott O'Malley of 1024 3rd Street. I'm here with Neil Frederick. Neil is helping Isaac with the how-to of the project, and I'm helping him with the what-with part of the project. Donations are encouraged because of the expense of the project. I have issued a challenge grant to Isaac. I will match every dollar he gets in donations so that this project can be done next spring. We are arranging for a nonprofit to help out with this so that any deduction or any donations will be tax deductible. It's the end of the year. It's time to flush out those profits and write a check and look for a newspaper story as to where to send that. Neil, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, everything covered,
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So what nonprofit will this be, in
Uh,
case people want to make checks out?
They've just asked me, the nonprofit has just asked me to check with one more thing before releasing their name.
I could say, material suppliers are looking good at donating some of the materials too.
Super.
Hopefully we'll have those in before March, actually.
Thank you.
But,
The Boy Scouts in our community have made such a donation to our community over the years. And, you know, the park down with the Boy Scout statue is a reflection of all the hard work that you boys have done in our community, and we thank you for that. Is there has been a motion, is there a second?
I seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go back to item 4, which is review and consider approval of a revised employee handbook. Mr. Willie.
You should have received a clean copy and a markup copy over the weekend. In addition, there were a few changes that I emailed to you that are also on the table this evening, some language changes. The Finance Committee, a few items were brought up. Longevity, they've asked me to check in to see what's done in other municipalities or how that can be tweaked. The Finance Committee is recommending, we had added a full holiday and 2 half-day holidays, which nets out to 2 holidays, and we had removed 3 floating holidays. The Finance Committee is recommending that we return one of those 3 floating holidays, so it'll be an even trade-off, so they won't lose any holiday days. I'm also going to be taking a look at some of the regional employers, hopefully people about our size with the vacation as well, to make a determination. So that's the 3 changes that were made, or recommendations made at the Finance Committee. If there's any other questions on it or concerns.
Are we also going to look at the banking of sick?
Oh, yes, correct. When we had originally proposed this, Mayor Birch and I had talked about a paid time off instead of a vacation and sick leave. I put together a policy. We're entering negotiations with the police department. I didn't want to have 2 different systems going, so that might be something that'll come out later if we're able to work something out with the police department. So instead of having a vacation and a sick leave, we just have a paid time off policy. So there's been one proposed, but we just decided at this point to hold off on it.
Any questions? John, you got?
It's a great piece of work. I think you've done a great job combining represented versus non-represented and trying to make it as smooth as possible, so.
And it can be changed at any time. That's another thing that we talked about in finance. If something comes up between now and the first of the year, it can be changed. It's not an ordinance or anything, so it's
Motion to
By
approve
council approval.
by council, yes.
Motion to approve revised employee handbook.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 5, review quotes received for snow plowing municipal-owned parking lots in the downtown area. Tom, you want to take that? We've got, go ahead.
We advertise for quotes for plowing the city-owned parking lots downtown, basically to allow some of our city workers to get to other parts of the city and get the plowing routes done a little faster. The 2 pieces of equipment that we use for the parking lots downtown are the 2 front end loaders, and it takes probably 2 to 4 hours, we estimate, to do those lots. By contracting the services out, we feel that we can get back to some residential areas, especially the cul-de-sacs, faster. We currently have 72 cul-de-sacs, and that seems to be the biggest area of complaints in the city is the cul-de-sacs. So it's to speed up the snow plowing process.
Okay. Any questions for Tom? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. As long as you're there, Tom, let's move to the next item. Review boat launch fees proposal to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources.
The boat launch fees that we currently have expired, and we thought we were grandfathered in, but according to some discussions with the DNR. Our current fee structure is outdated and no longer acceptable to the DNR. We currently have a 3-tier system, which is not allowed anymore. So we do have to submit a application by the end of December to the DNR.
It was recommended in finance to $7 for city residents and $10 for non-city.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
One quick question. Does it have anything to do with the amount of money we receive from the DNR, or is it, if we had no money, it'd be the same criteria for the pricing? I know at one time we were talking that we had received a grant to finish that.
I don't know if that has
I don't-
anything to do with it.
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, establish a stormwater utility ordinance number 22-11. Neil, you're our stormwater utility expert.
This ordinance was discussed and recommended by the Public Works Committee. The reason you're looking at a stormwater utility is the current funding for the stormwater infrastructure is not adequate to maintain it. And I think the real evidence for that, Tom had mentioned earlier at the Finance Committee, is this past year, I think we had 2 or 3 emergency repairs to either catch basins or manholes. The other driving factor to this is because at the last census, the city is over 10,000 people. The city will now be required to comply with provisions of the Federal Clean Water Act and then state administrative rules, which will, and it's probably going to be next year or in 2013, will require the city to obtain a stormwater discharge permit. Tom and I had visited the city of River Falls that had to comply with this, and they set up their stormwater utility, I think, in 1998. And one of the things that is a requirement of the permit is there's a certain amount of both public education, testing, and then we have to be, there are some requirements in terms of discharge standards, that in terms of the quality, just as there are discharge standards for discharging sanitary sewer effluent into the St. Croix, we're going to have somewhat similar discharge requirements for discharging storm sewer into either Lake Malibu or the St. Croix. One of the things that would be funded by the stormwater utility, probably one of the most important things, would be an inspection program to sit there and inspect all the infrastructure to determine, what really are the current needs, so that the city can be proactive in that regard and to try to alleviate having emergency repairs.
Okay. Any questions?
I'll just make a comment. I think with the amount of flooding we've seen over the last few years, I'm looking forward to finding a way to fix a lot of those problems.
Okay.
I also think it's just a matter of good stewardship and trying to keep the St. Croix clean, the Malibu, that this is a national scenic riverway, and just trying to do our part in managing our stormwater better, so.
Okay. Mary, you have anything?
No.
So the recommendation that came out of out of finance was to start with a tiered structure. It's different from what we had voted on in Public Works. We voted in finance to go with a tiered structure starting at $7.50 per quarter per residential unit. And commercial and industrial properties would be charged according to their larger areas. So I guess I'd move that we have a first reading.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Do we need a roll call on that one or not? No.
No.
Any other discussion?
So I missed how commercial would be charged then. 'Cause here it just says $10, so it's $7.50 for residential, and then how's commercial?
So there's two different, you should have gotten two different
There will
packets
be.
of information.
Second page.
The dollars will be coming by next meeting or sooner.
Okay, well, that's what I was
It,
looking
it
at.
calculates residential,
Base charge per acre of, okay,
yeah.
per acre. All right, I see that there.
It also includes multiple family and then
Right.
a couple other things as multiples of one. There's a paragraph description of it too.
Yeah.
But the only difference is that it's 750 instead of 10 per.
Yeah, and we had talked about a flat structure in Public Works, and now we're talking about a tiered structure. Neil has an issue sheet you should have gotten in your packet too, and it's got the breakdown.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay. It's more than what's in the ordinance, so. So what we talked about is that at the next meeting, we had the second reading, and we'd have more detailed data from Neil about actual monies that we would capture.
Yeah, what will be happening is you'll have an ordinance that sets up the basic structure and then a fee resolution that the council will adopt that adopts the actual fees.
Right. That way it's not part of the ordinance, it can be modified
Correct,
separate from the
yeah.
ordinance, yep.
Rich asked us in finance, and I didn't quite hear, I didn't hear an answer, and that was one of the notes I had written down is, are we gonna, once we find out the needs of the city, are we gonna consider a sunset for this?
I think we can.
Because I tend to agree with that, to have,
Well, I would just suggest that you just calendar it for however, once it's up and running and staff thinks it's, time to review, see where the fees are with respect to the budget and so forth, that you look at it.
And as we go forward, as we establish areas for treating this stuff, we're also gonna have to maintain those areas.
Sure.
So I see this as probably, unless it becomes part of the general budget, maybe being reduced at some point after the infrastructure is built, but at some level, you'll have to have it to maintain the infrastructure.
Or we can figure out how to make it part of the general budget, which is true.
Okay, anything else? Randy, anything? Nope. Rich? Okay. Lee, anything more?
Thank
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is the consider filling police department lieutenant position. Oh, squad car first. That was pulled, wasn't it?
Yeah, I asked to pull it.
Okay. Purchase of squad cars. Mary, you pulled it?
Well, I just pulled it because I had questions, not because I don't agree with purchasing the squad car. There was questions on whether they can be delivered or not, and obviously we have that letter in front of us, and I understand the bids went out. If we choose not to accept any of these bids at this time, what happens? Have we ever just not accepted bids before?
I think that's been done on construction projects. This is subject to the city's procurement policy. It's not a state required to be put out for bid under state statute. So we're going under the city's procurement policy. In a situation where it's fairly clear what you're purchasing, rejecting all bids or proposals, you're really getting proposals, and redoing it, you're not going to get anything too very different, and all the information's out there.
No,
And
but
so it allows, I think it ends up being an unfair process. When the specs are the same, you're rejecting all the bids or proposals, allowing people to resubmit proposals. You're basically saying everybody knows what the proposals were, and they can adjust their proposals now based on what other people have submitted.
Well-
And I don't think it's a good idea for the city. You want to have a fair process so people will submit the best bids or proposals they can.
If we have
And-
questions of delivery fees and stuff, doesn't that kind of change?
Well, that's in my view anyway, just monetarily, I think it's a smaller portion of the price, so that it's not a huge difference. Ideally, it should be in the specs. It wasn't, but I would hate to see the whole process tainted, which I think it would if you rejected all proposals and allowed a resubmission.
In our procurement policy, does it answer the question about keeping it local?
Well, the local, I mean, you have a local option,
Right.
and you can apply that if you
Right.
choose to. That didn't come up in discussion. I don't think the proposal submitted by the whole Ford dealership came within the 2%.
The original did not, no.
As submitted.
Yeah, but this is kind of where the whole delivery issue comes in. And if we were to determine what the delivery costs were, and I mean, I'd be inclined to say, let's not talk about anyone going to get the vehicle. Say, how much does it cost to have the vehicle here?
Mhm.
And then, can't we see if there's a 2% difference then?
If all the specs are the same, then
Right.
you could easily apply it, yep.
I think that makes a difference, and I took a lot of heat last time for not going with the Hudson dealer, so I'm not gonna take the heat again. I'm gonna listen to my constituents, so
Well, I mean,
just how it's gonna be.
I would you need a fair process, and people out there submitting proposals need to know that they're going to be,
Right.
it's going to be a fair process.
Have we ever not, I mean, I think before we've said, you know what, we missed something in the spec,
Mhm.
and we should have said this, we want the vehicles
We
delivered
should consider a
here.
delivery process.
Well, I guess if you want to accept the low bid subject to being delivered here,
So it's about a 1,500,
1,200.
1,200 difference.
But that doesn't cover delivery.
There's no reason why I could make a motion to approve it Ford, right?
well,
I know you don't like that whole
No. His bid as submitted, the Ford dealership, doesn't come within the 2%
Right.
differential that the policy
The local
authorizes
It would have to
for
be like a
local.
$500.
But due to the fact that delivery wasn't in the specs, the request spec,
But I
we can
think
reject the bids and go back out for bid.
But I think Marty said, for example, Ewald, their delivery charge for delivering from the east side of the state is $150.
From the east side of the state.
Yeah, so that's why I say I don't think we're talking about a big difference in overall total bid.
And even if you had 150 across the board, it's not going to,
It's not going to do anything for the whole proposal, I don't think.
I don't care. My point is to keep it local.
Well, you have a procurement policy that sets up a process that's designed to be fair
Well, that
and to
means
provide a
we
local
adjust it.
option when they come within the 2%. And I think you'd have challenges if you don't follow your own procurement policy.
right, and if we go back out for bid knowing there was a modification on one of the other ones, you're,
Yeah, you're tainting the process, and I just think overall for the city, that's not a good idea.
And this letter doesn't mean anything then? So
Well,
it's just kind of a
what
moot
the
point?
policy says, the proposals were all public when that letter came in. And I'm not making any value judgment, but it creates an unfairness, because all of a sudden, the other bidders know what all the bids are. And so it taints, again, the fairness, the competitiveness of the proposals.
Well,
So there's a policy flaw as far as I'm concerned.
This was something that was just approved a year and a half ago.
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's not, I mean, the 2% is 2%, and the fact that the proposal didn't meet that
Right.
means that that's what the council decided.
I'm less bothered by that, Randy, than I am that we are kind of comparing apples and oranges. When we talk about, in one situation, we're having to send a couple officers out of town, it's not going to be an hour, it's going to be longer than that. And in the other case, the vehicle's here in town. That's what I don't like about this, is we are comparing apples and oranges, and we do this every time we buy a vehicle.
Oh,
Well-
we've got to put destination in it next time, and we can't continue to offer the
Yeah,
bid.
We
just
said that
say-
last
just
year.
say
You have to have it last year.
delivery.
This
This
is
is
just
just like a
delivered
deja
to
vu
the
discussion.
city.
I'm just not
So
thrilled.
I would make a motion that we put this back out for bid, and we say that it be contingent upon delivery here.
I'm gonna
I
second.
think, can I just make a comment on that? I think a better way to go would be to accept the low bid, subject to it being delivered here.
At no additional cost.
Yes. Because then you're acting in the best interest of the city. The delivery charge in the Ewald, I think was, didn't you say 150?
Around $120.
And, which is why I don't think it's a large part of the total price.
and then I-
But that difference would make a difference, if you look at the two low bids, there's
Right.
less than $50 separating them.
And
So I'm
it-
saying it would have to be contingent upon delivery at no additional cost.
Okay.
And I I think that's very reasonable,
Okay.
because then if they say no, then you're back to
Then
bidding.
we're back to, then we'll go elsewhere. So that's my motion. And next time,
Say that again. I'm sorry.
okay, just, I would accept the River Valley Ford bid at $26,248, contingent upon them delivering it here at no additional cost.
And I'll second that.
But next time, I want that in the spec, please.
Well, Marty, nothing, I'm for buying the new car, but I'm gonna vote no, because it's, I think we need to keep it local.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I think my only comment would be that we need to change our procurement policy to be a little more flexible towards supporting a local business. So it sounds like we could change the future, but we need to be sticking to our responsibility currently, so.
And we should point out, the difference here is over $1,200. It's
Right.
not a tiny difference at all.
We
Big-
did make
big
that
difference.
provision in the procurement policy to allow us it to be up to 2% more. In this case, it would be $500. You know, at some point, we're not doing taxpayers a favor when we're giving too much of an advantage.
Right.
So,
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any other discussion that anyone would like to add? Okay, all in favor?
aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-2. Thank you. Consider filling the police department lieutenant position. Chief Jensen.
With the approval of the 2012 budget, the lieutenant's position was put back into place with the promotion of a sergeant to fill that position and then leaving that sergeant's position vacant. What I'm coming in front of the council today is to get permission to go ahead and fill that vacancy by making that promotion for that lieutenant to begin the first part of next year.
Did that affect on the dollars, Marty, between the sergeant position and the lieutenant position?
$9,000.
Okay, and that was in your budget?
Correct.
I'll move to approve filling the vacant lieutenant's position.
Second.
Discussion, questions?
You said it's $9,000 difference, I'm sorry.
Correct.
I was trying to find my sheet. And it is budgeted for?
It was put in the budget, correct.
And this is a promotion, not a addition?
No, it is a promotion. One of the sergeants will be promoted to lieutenant, and then that sergeant's position will be vacant.
So an adjustment of resources.
Correct.
Okay.
So let's talk about that. How are you going to disperse the duties of the sergeant's position?
Well, the sergeant's position that we're currently going to be vacating will be the detective sergeant's position.
Okay.
He oversees the two detectives and the school resource officer. Lieutenant will be picking up some of those supervisory responsibilities. The only thing that will be lacking is the detective sergeant will not be obviously doing investigative work because he'll be a lieutenant now. The situation does arise from time to time where we do have major cases that come in, and we do take patrol officers off the schedule either to help with the investigation on overtime. So if that should happen again, that's probably what we'll end up doing, is allocating resources around.
And I don't want to overstate the obvious, but the lieutenant is a non-represented position.
Correct, and there
They're
will be...
aware of that, and you're aware of that, so they will not receive overtime anymore. They'll just receive their salary.
So according to the job description, the lieutenant can act as somewhat of patrol too on the streets if we want him to?
Correct.
Was that happening before? I don't,
Yep, the lieutenant still had the same responsibilities. He could have been out on the street. There have been times where we've been short during the day if somebody's called in sick, and I've actually gone out on patrol until we've gotten people in.
Okay.
Well, I have two concerns, and
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not going to be supporting this at this point. One is we've got police negotiations coming up this week. I don't know what the financial implications are going to be of that. And I know in public safety on Thursday, there's going to be discussion about reduced revenues that are significant, you know, from the last 2 years. I'd kind of like to see some discussion about that, and you know, I don't know if it means we need another officer on the street instead of promoting someone to this lieutenant's position, but I'd like to see the results of the police union negotiations and the result of your discussion before we make this change.
What revenue? There's nothing on the agenda for reviewed revenue.
I thought there was going to be a discussion
There's something about parking. But there's nothing about municipal ordinance citations or revenues being down.
There should be.
There hasn't, nothing that's come through.
And I know it was one discussion we had during the budget time was that has there not been a reduction?
There have been reductions in amount of citations and traffic tickets that have been issued over the last couple of years, correct?
Yeah. I think it needs some further discussion, and I don't think we can ignore it and just go ahead and change. So I may be alone, and that's okay, but that's where I'm at.
Any other questions, comments?
We have a meeting in December. This can come back on a December meeting after all those questions are answered. And it's not going to delay
It will delay the promotional process,
3 weeks.
possibly.
Correct, you meet on the 19th, 2 weeks from tonight.
I'm okay, sorry.
Nah,
We meet on the 19th.
Right, yeah, 2 weeks from tonight.
Yes.
if anything, I think if you get the promotion, that could be part of the discussion, part of the solution.
The lieutenant, as of today, without that lieutenant there, what are the duties that are not getting accomplished that need to be, as soon as this person takes over this role, I assume that there is some lingering work that needs to be cleaned up.
Well, obviously, the lieutenant was in charge of training, making sure those files are up to date, scheduling training, working with the state on making sure that the number of officers that we have matches up with their records. The lieutenant also ran the day-to-day operations of the department, making sure that officers were getting their works done, that supervising the sergeants to make sure that direction that was getting out was getting out. What's happening now is that we've had to focus and spread that out amongst all the sergeants. Currently, right now, our our detective sergeant, Sergeant Atkinson, has been on light duty, so he's taken on a lot of those responsibilities, and he'll be the first one to tell you that it's taken up a lot of his time.
So it's a full-time position that's kind of been sliced and diced.
Correct.
So Lori, you think the negotiations are going to have an impact on your decision as to whether to fill the lieutenant's position?
Possibly. I mean, there's going to be a financial implication of the negotiations. We can't ignore that. We can't.
There was a certain amount that was budgeted that the city hoped to gain through the negotiation process.
And is that currently in the police department budget?
No. There was an amount that the finance committee chose to pull out of the police budget in hopes of what would happen in negotiations.
But we don't know.
It's an ups, if negotiations don't go the way you planned, the budget stays the same. If the negotiations go better than you planned, you're gonna have additional money in the budget.
No. If the budget go as planned, the budget will be even. If the negotiations go as planned, the budget will be even.
If they don't go as planned, we'll be short.
I don't think it hurts to wait until after negotiations. It's 3 weeks. It's not like, I'm not saying no to filling the position. I just want it, I want to wait to see
Well, and
the
we'll
financial
know
implications.
By the 19th, where we are at negotiations, we may be nowhere. I mean, we don't know that until we're meeting with them twice, so we don't know that. We may
Based on what
have
you
a
just
result.
said, though, we're running at risk.
Well, if we fill this, we're running a greater risk if we do this now.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, if we
is that
wait 3 weeks,
right
we
now
know
our-
where we're sitting.
Right now, our budget is running at risk. We're making an assumption in the budget that may or may not be
Right.
correct, which is what Lori is pointing out.
How much overtime did the sergeant normally get?
It varies. Sergeant Atkinson currently is the highest sergeant in overtime, and he averages somewhere around, I want to say somewhere between $7,000 and $8,000 a year.
So you could expect that to continue if you don't have a lieutenant?
Correct.
But that's budgeted already in the police department budget.
Well, that position is not.
No, but.
It'd have to be moved around.
Overtime.
Eric Atkinson's overtime is generally budgeted for
Correct.
ahead of time, so it's already budgeted.
But
We already
addition-
planned for that
But
overtime.
additional duties will be required because the lieutenant position's not available, so there'll be more overtime in order to fill the responsibilities of the lieutenant.
But not necessarily by just Eric, if it's getting spread out.
What was the
Right,
point?
but still being compensated for. I mean, we're still seeing an overrun of responsibilities because we're missing a full-time person here that
In the budget.
is fairly
there-
key in the
excuse me for interrupting.
department.
In the
sorry.
budget, there was an amount set aside for lieutenant salary and all the benefits with it. The detective sergeant that line was not included in the budget. But that's 70,000 plus if Marty's saying 8, so it's probably a wash by what the sergeant would have made plus overtime versus what we're proposing to pay lieutenant.
Because
We
there
don't
would be
know.
no overtime.
There'd be
Be no overtime if we, right, if we have a lieutenant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's making some assumptions,
Yeah,
but
so I would challenge your assumption about risking the budget.
Because the budget's
plan
already
ahead.
spent, whether we gain this or
no,
not.
there are additional reductions in the police budget that we put in there that we were hoping during the negotiation process to get from the police officers.
But the lieutenant's position is in the budget.
Yeah.
Right, but there are other places in the budget that we would reduce the police department budget in personnel costs by a certain amount that we hope to gain during the negotiation process with the patrol officers.
So the budget was set up with the premise that we would fill the lieutenant's position knowing we were at risk anyways.
Mhm.
So the risk is still there. I mean, the
Right.
risk is the
Either
risk.
way.
The rest, you're
The
right.
risk- We haven't changed anything.
Right.
If we fill the lieutenant's position, we haven't changed anything, because the risk is still there, and we planned, or we understood that risk when we went into the process.
Right. The only way to eliminate that risk is to eliminate overtime, which means work doesn't get done.
Right.
Yes, sir, Randy?
I'd call a question, but
There's no motion.
yes, it was.
Yeah.
What was the
Yeah,
motion?
he made a motion.
Approve filling the vacant lieutenant position.
What was his motion?
Who made the motion?
I did.
Randy?
And who seconded?
I did.
Okay,
Lee?
all right.
Which was to fill the lieutenant's position?
That is correct, yep.
So the motion's been, question's been called. All in favor of filling the lieutenant's position signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
4-2, motion carries. Thank you. I don't think I have anything else there. All right, anything from any alderperson? Anything that you'd like to add for the good of the whole? City attorney?
Nope.
City administrator?
Nope.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you.